Hey folks, welcome back to my channel where we celebrate the magic of cinema. Today, I want to talk to you about a film that's not just a movie. It's a masterpiece that redefined storytelling, family dynamics, and the very essence of epic drama. I'm talking about The Godfather Part 2, released back in 1974. If you haven't seen it yet, or if it's been a while since you revisited this gem, let me tell you why this is a must-watch. It's a film that pulls you in with its rich characters, stunning visuals, and a narrative so compelling that it feels like you're living through history. And trust me, once you start, you won't want to stop. I'll share every little detail about its creation, the people behind it, the challenges they faced, and why it stands as one of the greatest sequels ever made, all without giving away any plot points, because I want you to experience its power fresh. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's explore why The Godfather Part 2 deserves a spot on your watch list. First off, let's set the stage. This film is the second installment in what would become an iconic trilogy, following the massive success of The Godfather in 1972. That first film was a phenomenon, based on Mario Puzo's best-selling novel, and it captured the world's imagination with its portrayal of family loyalty, power, and the American dream through the lens of an Italian-American crime family. But The Godfather Part 2 takes things to another level. It's both a sequel and a prequel, weaving together two timelines seamlessly. One follows the next generation in the late 1950s, dealing with the complexities of expanding influence and navigating new challenges in places like Nevada and beyond. The other goes back to the early 1900s, showing the origins of the family patriarch in Sicily and his early days in New York City. This dual structure is genius. It adds depth, contrast, and a sense of inevitability to the story. You get to see how the past shapes the present, and it's done in a way that's emotionally resonant and visually breathtaking. If you love the first film's exploration of tradition and ambition, this one amplifies it, making you reflect on legacy and change. It's why so many critics and fans argue it's even better than the original, and that's saying something. At the helm of this ambitious project is Francis Ford Coppola, the visionary director who also helmed the first Godfather. Coppola was just 35 years old when he directed Part 2, but he was already a force in Hollywood after successes like Patton, for which he won an Oscar for screenwriting. For this film, he didn't just direct, he co-wrote the screenplay with Mario Puzo, the author of the original novel. Puzo, an Italian-American writer born in New York in 1920, drew from his own cultural background to create the world of the Corleones. The novel The Godfather was published in 1969 and became a runaway hit, spending 67 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. For Part 2, while some elements of the prequel storyline come from unused parts of the book, the sequel portions, the modern-day narrative, are entirely original, crafted specifically for the screen by Coppola and Puzo. This collaboration was electric. They built on the first film's foundation but expanded it into something more epic, more introspective. Coppola has often spoken about how the film explores themes of family, power, and the corruption of the soul, but he does it with such subtlety and artistry that it feels timeless. If you're a fan of directors who pour their heart into every frame, Coppola's work here will blow you away. He's not just telling a story, he's creating a world you can feel. Now, let's talk about the incredible cast that brings this world to life. Leading the charge is Al Pacino as Michael Corleone, reprising his role from the first film. Pacino, born in 1940 in New York City to Italian-American parents, was relatively new to stardom when he took on this part, but his performance in the original catapulted him to fame. In Part 2, he delves even deeper into the character's complexities, showing layers of intensity, vulnerability, and resolve. Pacino's method acting background shines through. He trained at the Actors Studio and brings a raw authenticity that's mesmerizing. For his work here, he earned a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Actor and actually won the BAFTA Award for Best Actor, which is the British equivalent of the Oscars. It's a role that defines his career, and watching him evolve the character is one of the film's greatest joys. Then there's Robert De Niro, who plays the young Vito Corleone, a role originated by Marlon Brando in the first film. De Niro, also a New York native born in 1943, was coming off acclaimed performances in films like Mean Streets, directed by Martin Scorsese. To prepare for this, De Niro immersed himself in the Sicilian dialect. Almost all of his dialogue is in Sicilian Italian, which he learned phonetically. He even spent time in Sicily to absorb the culture and mannerisms. His dedication paid off. He became the first actor to win an Oscar for portraying the same character as another Oscar winner. Brando won for the older Vito. De Niro took home the Best Supporting Actor Oscar for Part 2, but he couldn't attend the ceremony because he was filming Bernardo Bertolucci's 1900 in Italy. Coppola accepted the award on his behalf. De Niro's portrayal adds a fresh, youthful energy to the origin story, making you understand the roots of the family's strength. Robert Duvall returns as Tom Hagen, the family's consigliere and adopted son. Duvall, born in 1931 in San Diego, California, brings his signature gravitas and subtlety to the role. He's a classically trained actor with a background in theater, and his chemistry with Pacino is electric. For this performance, he earned an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Diane Keaton is back as Kay Adams Corleone, Michael's wife. Keaton, born in 1946 in Los Angeles, was known for her work in Woody Allen films like Play It Again, Sam. But her role here showcases her dramatic range. She's the emotional anchor in many ways, bringing a sense of normalcy and conflict to the family's world. John Cazale reprises Fredo Corleone, the middle brother. Cazale, born in 1935 in Massachusetts, was a theater actor who appeared in all three Godfather films despite his short career. He tragically passed away in 1978 from lung cancer. His portrayal is nuanced and heartfelt, adding depth to the family dynamics. Talia Shire plays Connie Corleone, the sister. Shire, born in 1946, is actually Francis Ford Coppola's real-life sister, which adds a personal touch. She earned an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress for her work here. Morgana King returns as Mama Corleone, the matriarch, bringing warmth and tradition to the screen. King was a jazz singer, born in 1930 in New York, and her musical background influenced her authentic portrayal. Lee Strasberg makes his film debut as Hyman Roth, a powerful figure in the story. Strasberg, born in 1901 in what is now Ukraine, was a legendary acting teacher and co-founder of the Actors Studio. He taught method acting to stars like Pacino and De Niro, so his presence here is meta and brilliant. Despite falling ill during shooting, which delayed some scenes, he delivered a performance that earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Michael V. Gazzo plays Frankie Pentangeli, a key associate. Gazzo, born in 1923 in New Jersey, was a playwright and actor, and his gritty realism earned him an Oscar nod for Best Supporting Actor. G.D. Spradlin is Senator Pat Geary, bringing a political edge. Spradlin, a former oil executive turned actor, adds authority. Richard Bright returns as Neri, the enforcer. Bright, born in 1937 in New York, was a method actor who appeared in many Scorsese films too. Gastone Motion plays Don Fanucci, a neighborhood boss in the prequel scenes. Motion was an Italian actor born in 1929, known for European cinema. Tom Roski is Rocco Lampone, another loyalist. Roski, born in 1928, had a solid career in film and TV. Bruno Kirby plays young Peter Clemenza, a friend from Vito's early days. Kirby, born in 1949 in New York, real name Bruno Giovanni Chidacciolo Jr., was just starting out and brings youthful charm. Frank Severo is Genco Abondando, young Vito's associate. Severo, born in Italy in 1952, later appeared in Goodfellas. Francesca DeSapio plays young Mama Corleone, adding tenderness to the origins. DeSapio is an Italian actress born in 1945. Mariana Hill is Deanna Corleone, Fredo's wife. Hill, born in 1941 in California, had a varied career including Star Trek appearances. Leopoldo Trieste plays Signor Roberto, a landlord in the early scenes. Trieste, an Italian actor born in 1917, was known for Fellini films. There are even smaller roles that add texture, like Troy Donahue as Merle Johnson, a nod to his real name, Dominic Chianese as Johnny Ola, later famous as Uncle Junior in The Sopranos, and Amerigo Tot as Michael's bodyguard. Joe Spinell plays Willie Chichi, the hitman. Spinell, born in 1936, was a character actor in Rocky and Taxi Driver. Harry Dean Stanton appears as an FBI agent. Stanton, born in 1926, was a staple in indie films. Phil Feldman is Senator Questott, and Roger Corman, the low-budget film king, cameos as Senator No. 2. Even Coppola's family is involved. His father, Carmine Coppola, conducts the orchestra in a scene. His mother, Italia, appears as an extra. And his kids, Roman and Sofia, future director, are in crowd scenes. This personal touch makes the film feel like a family affair. Behind the camera, the crew is equally stellar. Cinematographer Gordon Willis, known as the Prince of Darkness for his moody lighting, returns from the first film. Born in 1931 in New York, Willis used low-light techniques to create shadowy, atmospheric visuals that enhance the drama. His work here is iconic, blending the warm tones of the past with the colder, modern palette. The production design by Dean Tavoularis captures the eras perfectly, from the bustling Little Italy streets to the lavish Lake Tahoe estates. Tavoularis, born in 1932 in Massachusetts, collaborated with Coppola on many films. Art director Angelo P. Graham helped recreate historical New York. The costume design by Theodora Van Runkle evokes the periods authentically, from turn-of-the-century immigrant attire to 1950s suits. Van Runkle earned an Oscar nomination for her work. The editing team, Barry Malkin, Richard Marks, and Peter Zinner, masterfully intercut the two timelines, creating a rhythmic flow. Zinner, born in 1919 in Austria, had edited The Professionals. The sound design, handled by Walter Murch, who also worked on Apocalypse Now, adds immersion with authentic effects and music integration. Speaking of music, the score is by Nino Rota, the Italian composer who scored the first film. Born in 1911 in Milan, Rota's themes, like the haunting trumpet motif, are reprised and expanded. He collaborated with Carmine Coppola, Francis's father, born in 1910 in New York to Italian immigrants. Carmine, a flutist and conductor, composed additional music, including period pieces. Their work won the Oscar for Best Original Score. The soundtrack blends orchestral swells with source music like Italian folk songs, enhancing the cultural authenticity. Production wasn't smooth sailing. Paramount Pictures, the studio behind the first film, greenlit the sequel after its success, but there were hurdles. The original budget was set at $6 million, but costs ballooned to $13 million due to extensive location shooting, set constructions, and delays. Filming began in October 1973 and wrapped in June 1974, spanning about 8 months. Locations were diverse and ambitious. For the prequel scenes set in early 1900s New York, they shot in the East Village and on a massive set built at the New York Street backlot in Hollywood. But much was filmed on location in Tribeca and other parts of Manhattan to capture the gritty immigrant neighborhoods. The Ellis Island arrival sequence was shot at the actual historic site, adding realism. The Corleone family compound in the modern storyline is at the Kaiser Estate on Lake Tahoe's west shore at 4000 West Lake Boulevard in Homewood, California. This stunning property with its lakeside views stands in for the Nevada estate. Scenes set in Havana were actually filmed in the Dominican Republic, using Santo Domingo to double for Cuba due to political restrictions at the time. The crew faced challenges there, including heat and logistical issues. Miami, Florida, provided locations for some business dealings, capturing the sunny, contrasting vibe. Back in California, interiors were shot at Paramount Studios in Hollywood. And for the Sicilian origins, they filmed in Forza de Gro and Savoca in Sicily, Italy, the same villages used in the first film for authenticity. Coppola insisted on real locations to ground the story in history. There were creative challenges, too. Marlon Brando declined to return for a cameo as the older Vito, due to disputes with Paramount over pay and treatment during the first film. So, Coppola and Puzo expanded the young Vito storyline to fill that gap, which turned out to be a blessing. Robert De Niro auditioned for Sonny in the first film but didn't get it. Here, he shines. Al Pacino negotiated hard for his role, demanding script changes to deepen Michael's arc. Diane Keaton has shared how the set was intense, with long hours, but the cast bonded like a family. Lee Strasberg's illness caused delays. He had pneumonia, but he recovered to complete his scenes. Coppola himself faced pressure. After the first film's success, expectations were sky high, and he battled studio interference. At one point, Paramount wanted to recut the film, but Coppola fought for his vision. Trivia abounds with this film. It's the first sequel to win the Academy Award for Best Picture, a feat not repeated until The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King in 2003. The runtime is 202 minutes, making it an epic sit, but every second counts. The opening scene features a traditional Sicilian puppet show, setting the cultural tone. De Niro's preparation included listening to tapes of Brando's voice to match mannerisms subtly. The film incorporates real historical events, like the 1959 Cuban Revolution, to add context without dominating the story. Coppola's father Carmine not only co-scored, but appears on screen conducting. The famous line about keeping enemies closer is expanded here in thematic ways. Behind the scenes, the crew used over 400 extras for crowd scenes, and the wardrobe department sourced authentic period clothing from Italy. When it came to release, The Godfather Part 2 premiered on December 12, 1974 in New York, with a wide release on December 20th. It opened in limited theaters initially, building buzz. The marketing emphasized its epic scope, with posters featuring Pacino and De Niro's faces merged with the puppet strings motif from the first film. Critics raved. Roger Ebert called it a brilliant companion piece, and Pauline Kael praised its artistry. Audiences responded too. It grossed $47.8 million in the US and Canada on opening, with a worldwide total up to $93 million against that $13 million budget. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $500 million today. It was the fifth highest-grossing film of 1974 behind The Towering Inferno, but ahead of many others. Re-releases in 1997 and 2008, including a restored version, introduced it to new generations. The award season was triumphant. At the 47th Academy Awards in 1975, it received 11 nominations, the most for any sequel at the time. It won 6 Best Picture, making Coppola the producer, director, and writer of a Best Picture winner. Best Director for Coppola, his first directing Oscar. Best Supporting Actor for De Niro. Best Adapted Screenplay for Coppola and Puzo, their second win together. Best Art Direction for Tavoularis, Graham, and set decorator George R. Nelson, and Best Original Score for Rhoda and Carmine Coppola. Nominations included Best Actor for Pacino, Best Supporting Actor for Duvall, Gazzo, and Strasberg, a rare 3-in-1 category, and Best Supporting Actress for Shire. It also won at the Golden Globes, Directors Guild, and Writers Guild. In 1993, the Library of Congress selected it for preservation in the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. But beyond the accolades, what makes The Godfather Part 2 so special? It's the way it humanizes its characters, showing their ambitions, flaws, and relationships in a way that's universally relatable. The themes of immigration, family bonds, and the pursuit of power resonate across cultures. The visuals, those long, sweeping shots of landscapes and intimate close-ups, draw you in. The score swells at just the right moments, evoking emotion without words. It's a film that rewards multiple viewings. Each time you notice new details, like the symbolic use of oranges or the recurring motifs of doors closing. Influentially, it paved the way for complex sequels like The Empire Strikes Back or The Dark Knight. Directors like Scorsese, Tarantino, and even TV creators like David Chase, The Sopranos, cite it as inspiration. In polls, it's often ranked among the top films ever, number 32 on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies list, and frequently tops lists of best sequels. Picking up right where we left off, because The Godfather Part 2 is such a monumental film that one session just isn't enough to cover its depth. If you're new here or jumping in, this is your ultimate guide to why this 1974 epic deserves your time, packed with every fascinating detail about its making, without spoiling a single moment of the story. Imagine sitting down with a true cinema lover who's passionate about sharing why this movie isn't just great. It's essential viewing that elevates everything you know about family, ambition, power, and the American experience. Let's keep diving deeper into the magic behind the camera, the incredible talent in front of it, the tough production battles, and the lasting impact that makes rewatching it feel fresh every time. We were talking about the cast, and there's so much more to unpack there because every role, even the smaller ones, feels perfectly cast and adds to the richness. Take Danny Aiello as Tony Rosato, one of those character actors who brings instant grit and authenticity. He later became a household name in films like Do the Right Thing. Carmine Caridi as Carmine Rosato pairs perfectly with him, creating that tense dynamic that feels so real. Then there's Amerigo Tot as Buscetta, the silent but imposing bodyguard. His presence alone speaks volumes without a word. Abe Vigoda reprises Salvatore Tessio from the first film, bringing continuity and that quiet menace he's famous for from Barney Miller later on. Johnny Russo is back as Carlo Rizzi, and his scenes carry emotional weight that ties everything together. Julie Gregg as Sandra Corleone adds warmth to family moments, while Yvonne Call as Yolanda brings a touch of everyday life. Even the cameos and uncredited roles are legendary. Roger Corman, the king of independent cinema who launched so many careers, appears as Senator Number 2. It's a fun nod from Coppola, who admired his work. Harry Dean Stanton, the indie film icon, plays an FBI agent, his distinctive voice and face making even a brief appearance memorable. Phil Feldman as Senator Questad, Peter Donat in a similar role. They give the political scenes that authentic weight. Faye Spain as Mrs. Marcia Roth adds elegance and subtlety. Maria Carta as Vito's mother in the early scenes brings heartbreaking tenderness. And yes, the Coppola family is woven in. Young Roman Coppola as a boy in crowd scenes, little Sofia Coppola, who'd grow up to direct her own masterpieces, as a child on a ship. It's like the film itself became a family project. Now, let's get into the production challenges because this wasn't an easy shoot. Far from it. But the struggles made it stronger. After the first Godfather's chaotic making, Coppola demanded, and got, near total creative control for Part 2. Paramount initially resisted the title, Part 2, worried audiences wouldn't want a sequel, but Coppola insisted, and it became the standard for naming follow-ups. The original budget was set at $6 million, but with ambitious locations, massive sets, and delays, it climbed to $13 million. Some reports even say over $15 million, according to Variety. Filming kicked off on October 1, 1973, and wrapped June 19, 1974, spanning about 8 intense months. Principal photography started at the stunning Fleur du Lac estate on Lake Tahoe's western shore, specifically the Kaiser Estate at 4000 West Lake Boulevard in Homewood, California. That lakeside compound, with its sweeping views and luxurious feel, perfectly captured the family's evolution into something grander yet isolated. For the prequel timeline, they recreated early 20th century New York in the East Village, using streets between Avenues A and B in Lower Manhattan to stand in for Little Italy. The Arrival at Ellis Island was shot at the actual historic site, now a museum, adding real historical texture. Sicilian scenes took place in Forza d'Agro, a picturesque village in Messina Province, plus Savoca and Montecamastra, those same authentic spots from the first film that give the origins story such rooted feeling. The Arrival in New York interiors used the old fish market in Trieste, Italy, the Salone degli Incanti, a restored cultural center today. And for the Havana sequences, due to political issues, they filmed in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, with the Occidental El Embajador Hotel standing in for the luxurious spots. Miami provided some sunny business backdrops, and Paramount Studios handled many interiors. Coppola's team built massive sets for historical accuracy, and the shoot involved over 400 extras for crowd scenes. Behind the scenes, there were real tensions. Al Pacino, now a star after the first film, negotiated hard. His salary jumped from $25,000 to $500,000, and at one point, his lawyers said he had serious issues with the script and might not do it. Coppola rewrote it overnight to win him back. Robert De Niro, who'd auditioned for Sonny in the first film, losing to James Caan, got his chance here. He spent 4 months learning Sicilian dialect phonetically, even traveling to Sicily to immerse himself in the culture and mannerisms. His commitment to authenticity is legendary. Marlon Brando was approached for a cameo as older Vito, but disputes over pay and treatment from Paramount led him to decline. So Coppola expanded the young Vito storyline brilliantly. Richard Castellano couldn't return as Clemenza due to creative differences over dialogue, so the character was replaced with Frank Pentangeli. James Caan came back for one flashback as Sonny paid his full first film fee for basically a day's work. A nice payday. Lee Strasberg, the legendary acting coach, fell ill with pneumonia during shooting, delaying some scenes, but his performance as Hyman Roth is unforgettable, his first major film role at 73, and he earned an Oscar nomination. The crew dealt with weather issues in the Dominican Republic, heat and logistics, plus Al Pacino himself got pneumonia there, halting production for his recovery while they shifted to New York flashbacks. Coppola fought studio pressure constantly. He even considered letting Martin Scorsese direct, but Paramount said no. The parallel timelines were tricky. Editors Barry Malkin, Richard Marx, and Peter Zinner had to intercut them perfectly, and late in post, some critics worried the cross-cutting was too frequent. But time ran out for big changes. Cinematographer Gordon Willis returned, earning his Prince of Darkness nickname with those shadowy, moody shots, warm sepia tones for the past, cooler blues for the present. Production designer Dean Tavoularis and art director Angelo P. Graham recreated eras flawlessly, from immigrant tenements to opulent estates. Theodora Van Runkel's costumes, turn-of-the-century immigrant clothes to 1950s tailored suits, earned her an Oscar nomination. Sound by Walter Murch added immersive layers, and the music? Nino Rota's haunting themes, expanded with Carmine Coppola's contributions, won the Oscar for Best Original Dramatic Score. That trumpet motif alone can give you chills. The film premiered December 12, 1974 in New York at Loews Astor Plaza. Wide release December 20th. It opened strong, grossing about $47.8 million domestically and up to $93 million worldwide on that $13 million budget, around $365 million adjusted for inflation today. A solid hit. It was the first sequel to win Best Picture at the Oscars, taking home 6 out of 11 nominations. Best Picture, Coppola producing with Gray Fredrickson and Fred Roos. Best Director, Coppola. Best Supporting Actor, De Niro, the only time 2 actors won Oscars for the same character with Brando from the first. Best Adapted Screenplay, Coppola and Puzo. Best Art Direction, Tavoularis, Graham Nelson. And Best Score, Rota and Carmine Coppola. Nominations also for Pacino, Best Actor, Duvall, Gazzo, and Strasberg. Best Supporting Actor, 3 in 1 category, Shire, Supporting Actress, and Van Runkel, Costumes. It swept other awards too, BAFTA for Pacino, Directors Guild, Writers Guild, and more. Critics were divided at first. Some called it convoluted or slow, but over time it became revered. Today, 96% on Rotten Tomatoes in the National Film Registry, top rankings on AFI, Sight and Sound, Empire lists. It's influenced everything from The Sopranos to modern epics. The runtime is 202 minutes, but it never drags. Every frame builds the world. We're not done yet, because The Godfather Part 2 is the kind of film that keeps giving the more you talk about it. If you've been with me so far, you already know this isn't just a sequel. It's a towering achievement in cinema that stands shoulder to shoulder with the greatest films ever made. So let's keep exploring why you need to carve out those 3+ hours and experience it for yourself. I'm still your passionate narrator here, walking you through every layer of this masterpiece. More cast insights, deeper production secrets, the music that lives in your head for days, the cultural ripple effects, and all the little reasons it feels timeless, even in 2026. No spoilers, just pure appreciation for why this movie deserves your full attention. Let's circle back to the music for a moment, because Nino Rota's score is one of the quiet heroes of the entire trilogy. Rota, the Italian composer who passed away in 1979, had already given the first Godfather that unforgettable waltz-like theme, but in Part 2, he takes it further, layering it with new motifs that feel both nostalgic and foreboding. The main theme returns in different guises, sometimes soft and melancholic on mandolin, sometimes swelling with full orchestra to underscore the weight of decisions. Carmine Coppola, Francis's father, stepped in to co-compose additional pieces, including those period-appropriate Sicilian folk tunes and the operatic flourishes that tie the old world to the new. There's a scene where the music plays over a family celebration, and the contrast between the joyful melody and the undercurrents of tension is masterful. It's one of those moments where you realize the score isn't just background, it's telling part of the story. The soundtrack album itself became a classic, and even today, if you listen to it on its own, you'll feel the entire emotional arc of the film. Now let's talk about the visual language, because Gordon Willis's cinematography is legendary for a reason. Known for his work with Woody Allen and on Clute, Willis used a technique called low-key lighting to create those deep shadows and rich contrasts that make every frame feel like a painting. In the prequel sections, he bathes everything in warm, golden tones, think candlelight and early electric bulbs, to evoke the immigrant era's grit and hope. In the modern storyline, the colors cool down, blues, grays, and stark whites that mirror the emotional distance and isolation creeping in. There's a famous long take in one of the family gatherings where the camera slowly moves through rooms, capturing conversations in the background while the main action unfolds. Pure visual storytelling. Willis earned an Oscar nomination for the first Godfather, but many argue his work here is even better because of the dual timelines. The way he lights De Niro's face in the Sicilian scenes versus Pacino's in the Nevada compound tells you everything about how the character has changed without saying a word. Production designer Dean Tavoularis deserves a huge shout-out too. He turned the Kaiser estate on Lake Tahoe into the Corleone family's fortress-like retreat. Those massive windows overlooking the water, the dark wood interiors, the sense of grandeur mixed with loneliness. For the Little Italy sequences, Tavoularis and his team built entire blocks on the backlot and used real lower Manhattan streets, down to the pushcarts and laundry lines. The attention to historical detail is insane. Authentic 1910s clothing, horse-drawn carts, the smells, even if we can't smell them, of immigrant life. It all makes the past feel alive and immediate. So, when you see the contrast with the 1950s luxury, the evolution hits you hard. One of the coolest behind-the-scenes stories involves Robert De Niro's preparation. He didn't just learn the Sicilian dialect, he lived it. De Niro spent weeks in Sicily, hanging out in villages, listening to locals, even practicing how Vito would walk and gesture. He studied old photographs of early 20th century immigrants to get the posture right. When he returned, Coppola said De Niro's performance felt so authentic that it almost felt like they were watching real footage from the past. And the fact that he won the Oscar for the same character Brando had won for? That's cinema history right there. The only time two actors have won Oscars for playing the same role. There are tons of fun trivia nuggets that make the film even more special. For example, the puppet show in the opening scene is a real Sicilian marionette tradition, and the puppets were handmade by local artisans. The famous "keep your friends close, but your enemies closer" line gets its full thematic weight here, woven into the fabric of the story. Coppola included subtle callbacks to the first film, like certain foods, certain gestures, that reward repeat viewers. And yes, the oranges that appear throughout the trilogy as a symbol, they're here too, placed with deliberate care. The film's influence on pop culture is massive. The Sopranos creator David Chase has said he watched Part 2 over and over while developing his show. Tony Soprano's family dynamics, the mix of violence and tenderness, the Italian-American identity all echo from this film. Directors like Martin Scorsese, who worked with De Niro and Pacino multiple times, Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, and even Denis Villeneuve have cited it as inspiration for how to handle complex characters and moral ambiguity. In TV, shows like Boardwalk Empire, Peaky Blinders, and Breaking Bad all owe a debt to the way Part 2 explores power's corrupting influence. Even video games like Mafia and Grand Theft Auto have borrowed its tone and structure. In 2026, the film still feels relevant. Themes of immigration, family loyalty versus personal ambition, the cost of success in America, they resonate in today's conversations about identity, legacy, and what we pass on to the next generation. There have been beautiful 4K restorations over the years, with the 2019 and 2022 releases making the visuals pop even more on modern screens. If you watch it on a big TV or in a theater screening, the detail in the costumes, the texture of the sets, the depth of the shadows, it all comes alive. So here's my final pitch: The Godfather. Part 2 isn't just a movie to check off a list. It's an experience. It asks big questions about who we are, how we change, and what we're willing to sacrifice. The performances are career-defining, the direction is flawless, the music unforgettable, and the story so richly layered that you'll discover new things every time you watch. Whether you're watching for the first time or the 10th, it hits different. Pair it with the first film if you can, then finish with Part 3 for the full saga, though many consider Part 2 the peak. Hey folks, believe it or not, there's still more to say about The Godfather Part 2, because this film is like an onion, with layers upon layers that reveal themselves the deeper you go. If you've been riding along with me through these deep dives, you know by now that this 1974 classic isn't just entertainment. It's a profound piece of art that challenges how we think about storytelling in movies. So let's keep the conversation going. I'm your guide here, passionate about cinema, and eager to convince you that if there's one film to prioritize in your queue, it's this one. We'll uncover even more about the innovative techniques, the personal stories from the set, the way it mirrors real history, and why it continues to inspire filmmakers and audiences alike. No plot reveals, just the kind of insider knowledge that makes watching it even richer. One aspect we haven't touched on enough is how the film incorporates real historical events to ground its narrative in authenticity. The modern storyline weaves in the backdrop of the 1950s and early 1960s, including references to the Cuban Revolution of 1959 and the political shifts in Havana. Coppola didn't just throw these in for show, he researched extensively to make sure the details rang true, from the architecture of the hotels to the uniforms of the soldiers. It adds a layer of realism that makes the family's business dealings feel like they're happening in our world, not some fictional bubble. The prequel timeline draws from the real immigrant experience of the early 1900s, inspired by the waves of Sicilian migration to America during that era. Ellis Island, the poverty of Little Italy, the rise of organized crime figures, these aren't inventions, they're echoes of history. Coppola has said in interviews that he wanted the film to feel like a historical document, almost like a family album come to life. If you're a history buff, this movie will fascinate you on that level alone, showing how personal stories intersect with larger societal changes. Let's talk more about the editing, because the way this film cuts between timelines is nothing short of revolutionary. Editors Peter Zinner, Barry Malkin, and Richard Marx had the daunting task of blending two separate eras without confusing the audience. They used subtle visual cues, like matching gestures or similar compositions, to link scenes across time. For instance, a door closing in one timeline might echo in the other, creating a poetic rhythm. Zinner, who fled Austria during World War II and brought a European sensibility to Hollywood, was key in pacing the film's epic length. At 202 minutes, it could have dragged, but their work keeps it taut and engaging. Coppola screened rough cuts for friends and adjusted based on feedback, ensuring the balance felt right. This editing style influenced countless films after, from Pulp Fiction's non-linear narrative to Inception's layered realities. If you appreciate craft, watching for the edits alone is a masterclass. Sound design plays a huge role too, often overlooked but essential to the immersion. Walter Murch, the sound wizard who later won Oscars for Apocalypse Now and The English Patient, created a sonic landscape that's as detailed as the visuals. He layered ambient noises, from the bustling streets of 1910s New York with horse hooves and vendor calls, to the quiet isolation of Lake Tahoe with lapping water and distant echoes. In the Sicilian scenes, you hear authentic village sounds, church bells, wind through olive trees, the murmur of Italian conversations. Murch even used experimental techniques, like reversing audio or overlapping dialogues, to heighten tension. The way sound bridges the timelines, a fading echo from the past bleeding into the present, adds emotional depth. It's subtle, but once you notice it, you can't unhear how it elevates the drama. More on the cast's personal connections. Al Pacino drew from his own Italian-American roots in East Harlem, where he grew up. He once said the role of Michael allowed him to explore the immigrant son's struggle between old traditions and new ambitions, something he related to personally. Robert Duvall, with his military family background, brought a disciplined edge to Tom Hagen, the outsider who's fully committed. Diane Keaton has shared how working with Coppola felt like being part of a real family. Intense arguments on set, but deep respect. John Cazale, in what would be one of his last roles, infused Fredo with a vulnerability that came from his own theater training. He and Meryl Streep were engaged at the time, and she later spoke of his dedication. Talia Shire, as Coppola's sister, added a genuine sibling dynamic to her scenes. And Morgana King, the jazz singer, improvised some of her lines in Italian, bringing cultural authenticity that wasn't scripted. Behind-the-scenes anecdotes keep piling up. During the Dominican Republic shoot for the Havana scenes, the cast and crew dealt with sweltering heat, temperatures over 100 degrees, and Pacino's illness paused everything for weeks. Coppola turned it into an opportunity, shooting the New York flashbacks instead. De Niro's makeup for young Vito involved subtle prosthetics to mimic Brando's features without overdoing it. A nosepiece, cheek pads, tested in screen tests. The famous New Year's Eve sequence required hundreds of extras in period costumes, and the countdown was filmed multiple times for the right energy. Coppola's wife Eleanor documented the production in her diary, later turning it into the book Notes, which reveals the chaos, budget overruns, creative doubts, but ultimate triumph. The film's legacy extends to how it changed Hollywood. Before the Godfather series, sequels were often cash grabs, but Part 2 proved they could be artistic equals, or betters, to the original. It opened doors for ambitious follow-ups like Aliens or Terminator 2. Financially, its success helped Paramount weather the 1970s, funding other risks. Culturally, it sparked interest in Italian-American stories, leading to more diverse representations. Even the fashion, the sharp suits, the fedoras, influenced style trends, seen in everything from Mad Men to modern menswear. In terms of home video, the film has been lovingly preserved. The 2008 Coppola restoration Blu-ray fixed color issues and enhanced audio, making it look better than ever. The 2022 4K UHD release takes it further, with HDR that pops the warm tones and deep blacks. If you're watching digitally, platforms like Paramount Plus or Amazon often have it in high quality. Pair it with a good sound system to catch all those nuances. Why does this matter for you today? In a world flooded with content, The Godfather Part 2 stands out as something substantive. It's not passive viewing. It engages your mind and heart, prompting reflection on your own family ties, ambitions, and choices. For aspiring filmmakers, it's a blueprint. For casual viewers, it's an emotional journey wrapped in stunning craft. If you've seen it before, revisit with fresh eyes. Focus on the themes of betrayal and loyalty this time, or the visual symbolism. We're still rolling because The Godfather Part 2 is one of those rare films where the more you peel back, the more there is to love and admire. If you've stuck with me through all these segments, thank you. You're clearly someone who appreciates the craft of filmmaking at its absolute peak. Today, let's keep the momentum going and explore even more of what makes this 1974 epic feel so alive, so necessary, and so endlessly rewatchable. I'm your enthusiastic narrator, here to give you every last fascinating detail, every behind-the-scenes gem, and every reason why you should make time for this movie soon. Still no spoilers, just pure celebration of why this film deserves to be experienced in full, quiet focus. Let's dive into one of the film's most underrated strengths, its use of silence and stillness. In an era when many movies rely on constant dialogue or loud action, Coppola and his team masterfully employ quiet moments to let emotions breathe. There are long takes where characters simply sit, think, or look at each other, and the weight of what's unsaid becomes almost tangible. Gordon Willis's lighting plays a huge part here. Those deep shadows on faces, the way light falls across a room to highlight isolation or intimacy. It's cinematic poetry. Watch how a single glance from Pacino can carry more tension than pages of exposition. Or how De Niro's young Vito moves through a scene with deliberate calm, every step measured, every pause full of purpose. These quiet beats build the drama organically, making the louder moments hit harder when they arrive. If you're tired of over-edited, hyperactive films, Part 2 is a refreshing reminder that sometimes less is exponentially more powerful. Another layer worth exploring is the film's commentary on the American dream. Through the dual timelines, we see one man's rise from poverty-stricken immigrant to respected and feared figure, and then the next generation's struggle to maintain and expand that legacy in a changing world. It's not preachy, it's shown, not told. The contrast between the hardscrabble streets of early 1900s New York and the opulent but emotionally colder Nevada compound speaks volumes. Coppola has often said he was inspired by his own family's immigrant story. His grandparents came from Italy, and that personal connection infuses the film with authenticity. It's why the movie resonates across cultures. Anyone who's ever felt the pull between roots and ambition, between family duty and personal freedom, will find something here that mirrors their own life. The costumes deserve another spotlight because Theodora Van Runkel's work is so precise. In the prequel, the fabrics are rougher. Woolen coats, simple dresses, the kind of clothing immigrants could afford after long voyages. As the timeline moves forward, the tailoring gets sharper, the materials richer, the colors more subdued and sophisticated. Michael's suits evolve subtly over the course of the story, reflecting his internal shift. Even small details, like a pocket square, a tie pin, or the way a coat hangs, tell part of the character arc. Van Runkel researched old photographs, fashion plates from the era, and even consulted with Italian tailors to get the cuts authentic. Her nomination for Best Costume Design was well earned. The clothes aren't just period accurate, they're storytelling tools. Production anecdotes keep surfacing that show how much heart went into this. During one of the Lake Tahoe shoots, a real storm rolled in off the water, delaying everything. Instead of fighting it, Coppola incorporated the moody weather into some exterior shots, the gray skies and choppy lake adding to the sense of unease. Another time, the crew had trouble getting period-accurate cars for the New York scenes. They ended up sourcing vintage vehicles from collectors across the country and shipping them to the set. De Niro insisted on wearing real wool suits in the Sicilian heat to feel the discomfort Vito would have felt. Method acting at its most committed. Pacino, meanwhile, spent hours rehearsing scenes alone in his trailer, working on Michael's voice and posture to show the gradual hardening. These little choices add up to the film's incredible realism. The film's score has even more depth when you listen closely. Nino Rota's main theme isn't just one melody, it's a family of variations. In the past, it's played on mandolin or guitar, evoking nostalgia and simplicity. In the present, strings and brass take over, turning it darker, more ominous. Carmine Coppola added pieces like the tarantella dance music for celebrations and the mournful waltz for quieter moments. There's even a subtle leitmotif for certain characters that recurs just enough to register subconsciously. If you ever get the chance to hear the score live, some orchestras perform it in concert, it's breathtaking. The way the music swells and recedes mirrors the emotional tides of the story perfectly. Culturally, The Godfather Part 2 helped cement Italian-American identity in mainstream media in a complex way. Before these films, mob stories were often cartoonish or stereotypical. Coppola and Puzo insisted on nuance, showing honor codes, family loyalty, religious traditions alongside the violence and moral compromise. It opened doors for later works like Goodfellas, Casino, The Sopranos, all of which built on this foundation. At the same time, the film sparked debate within Italian-American communities. Some praised the authenticity, others worried it reinforced negative stereotypes. Coppola has addressed this over the years, saying he wanted to portray real people, not caricatures, and show the human cost of that world. For modern viewers, the film holds up remarkably well technically. The 4K restorations reveal details you might miss on older prints. The texture of cigar smoke curling in a room, the grain of wood paneling, the fine stitching on a dress. The sound mix is crisp, dialogue clear, ambient effects immersive. If you have a home theater setup, this is the movie to test it with. And if you're watching with subtitles, highly recommended for the Sicilian scenes, you'll catch the rhythm of the language, the way certain phrases carry cultural weight. So here's where we land. The Godfather. Part 2 is the rare sequel that doesn't just continue a story. It deepens it, questions it, and elevates it. It's about legacy, about how the choices of one generation echo into the next, about the price of power and the fragility of family. The performances are immortal, the direction visionary, the craft impeccable. In 2026, when so much content feels disposable, this film feels essential, something to savor slowly, to discuss afterward, to return to again and again. If I've convinced you, and I really hope I have, do yourself a favor. Block out an evening, make it dark and quiet, and press play. Let the opening notes of that trumpet pull you in. Let the story unfold at its own pace. When it's over, you'll feel like you've lived something real. Come back here and tell me what stayed with you longest. The music, a performance, a single image, or just the overall feeling. We're really deep into this now, aren't we? If you've been hanging with me through all these segments on The Godfather Part 2, you know this isn't just another movie. It's a cinematic monument that keeps unfolding the more you look at it. We're talking about a film from 1974 that still feels urgent, profound, and utterly gripping in 2026. So let's keep going. More hidden gems from the production, some wild trivia that shows how much ingenuity and grit went into every frame, the real-world spots that brought the story to life, the bits that almost made it in but didn't, and how this one film quietly reshaped everything from Hollywood blockbusters to prestige TV. No spoilers, of course, just the kind of details that make you appreciate it even more when you finally press play. One of the coolest things about the making of this film is how much real improvisation and on-the-fly creativity shaped it. Take that scene where young Vito's landlord, Signor Roberto, played by the Italian comedian Leopoldo Trieste, struggles to open the door to the olive oil shop. Coppola had the door rigged so a nail would jam it shut, but he kept it secret from Trieste. The actor's genuine frustration and fumbling were captured on camera. Pure gold. When Genko finally pulls the nail out, it's seamless because the struggle was real. Moments like that add authenticity you can't fake. Another fun one, early in the prequel, the actors wore pants with zippers, but a musician on set pointed out zippers weren't invented yet for that era. Coppola reshot those scenes with buttonfly trousers to keep the historical accuracy tight. Little details, huge impact. Lee Strasberg, the legendary acting coach making his big-screen debut as Hyman Roth, got sick with pneumonia during filming. Instead of shutting down, the team rewrote Roth as an ailing old man, turning a real setback into character depth. Strasberg's frailty made Roth's menace even more chilling. And speaking of health issues, Al Pacino caught pneumonia while shooting in the Dominican Republic, standing in for Havana, halting production for his recovery. They pivoted to New York flashback scenes, smart problem-solving that kept the momentum going. The Senate hearing scene? Filmed in the actual U.S. Senate chamber where the real Kefauver Committee hearings on organized crime took place back in 1950 to 51. That historical echo adds incredible weight. Most of the senators weren't actors. They were friends, family, and crew members of the cast and production team. Roger Corman, the B-movie legend who gave so many directors their start, even pops up as one of them. It's that personal, handmade feel that makes the film so special. Now, locations, man, this movie traveled. The Corleone compound on Lake Tahoe is the real Fleur de Lac, Henry J. Kaiser's estate, at 4000 Westlake Boulevard in Homewood, California on the western shore. That stunning lakeside spot with its views and isolation perfectly captures the family's rise and growing detachment. For Sicily in the prequel, they shot in Forza d'Agro, Savoca, and Mata Camastra near Taormina, gorgeous villages that stand in for young Vito's world, not the actual Corleone town, which looked too modern. The Ellis Island arrival used the historic site itself, now a museum, plus interiors at the old fish market in Trieste, Italy, the Salone degli Incanti today. And Havana? Political issues meant Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic doubled for 1950s Cuba, with spots like the Occidental El Embajador Hotel filling in for luxury venues. New York's East Village streets became Little Italy, complete with pushcarts and tenements rebuilt for grit. Every location feels lived in because it mostly was. Some stuff got cut that would have changed things. There were extended scenes exploring Michael and Kay's relationship more deeply, extra emotional layers that got trimmed for pacing. A graphic sequence where Michael confronts and avenges something from his past was filmed but deemed too bloody and violent for the tone, so it stayed out. Those stills leaked during promo. Another lost bit would have shown a younger Hyman Roth's origins tied closer to Vito, making his later actions hit even harder personally. Even the famous Roth birthday party scene had continuity glitches because weather delays stretched a 2-minute bit over a week, and the original patterned shirt got lost. They redrew the pattern on a replacement, but it doesn't quite match if you freeze frame. These cuts kept the film lean and powerful, proof that sometimes less is the genius move. The influence? Massive. The Godfather Part 2 proved sequels could be artistic triumphs, not cash grabs, paving the way for The Empire Strikes Back, The Dark Knight, and beyond. It helped launch the new Hollywood era where directors like Coppola had real creative control. Martin Scorsese, who Coppola once tried to hand the sequel to, Paramount said no, built on its style for Mean Streets, Goodfellas, and Casino. David Chase has said he rewatched Part 2 endlessly while creating The Sopranos. The family dynamics, the mix of tenderness and ruthlessness, the Italian-American identity all echo here. Shows like Boardwalk Empire, Peaky Blinders, even Breaking Bad and Succession owe debts to its exploration of power's corrosion and family as both strength and trap. Video games, Mafia series, Grand Theft Auto vibes, parodies, quotes in everything from The Simpsons to everyday speech, offer he can't refuse, became real mob lingo. It shifted how immigrant stories get told, making them nuanced instead of stereotypical, and sparked debates about representation that continue today. In 2026, with streaming endless quick cuts and spectacle, this film's patience, those long takes, quiet stares, swelling score, feels revolutionary. It's a slow burn that rewards you with depth. The 4K restorations make the shadows deeper, the Sicilian sun warmer, the Tahoe waters colder. Watch it on a big screen if you can. The immersion is unreal. We're pushing the boundaries here because The Godfather Part 2 is the gift that truly keeps on giving. No matter how many times you circle back, there's always another angle, another story, another reason it feels like one of the most important films ever made. If you've been with me from the start of this long-form love letter, thank you for the patience and the passion. You're clearly someone who gets why cinema matters, Why a 3-hour-plus movie from 1974 can still feel more alive and relevant than most things dropping today in 2026. So let's keep going. More production secrets, more cast stories, more cultural ripples, more tiny details that turn a great film into something transcendent. Still zero spoilers, just fuel for why you need to experience this masterpiece soon, preferably uninterrupted, preferably with good headphones or speakers. One of the quiet miracles of this film is how it handles language. Almost all of Robert De Niro's dialogue as young Vito is in Sicilian dialect, real Sicilian, not generic Italian. De Niro didn't speak the language when he started. He learned it phonetically over months, working with dialect coaches and spending time in Sicily to absorb the cadence, the gestures, the rhythm of how people actually spoke in those villages around 1900 to 1910. Coppola insisted on authenticity. Subtitles appear for the Sicilian parts so non-speakers understand, but the sound of the language itself carries emotion. You feel the immigrant struggle in the way words are shaped, halting, deliberate, full of pride and caution. It's one of the reasons the prequel feels so lived in. You're not watching actors pretending to be Italian immigrants. You're watching someone who immersed himself so deeply that the performance crosses into documentary territory. Another gem, the famous, "I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse" line from the first film gets its full thematic evolution here, but in ways that are never stated outright. Instead, Coppola and Puzo build an entire moral universe around what loyalty, debt, and refusal really mean in this world. Every handshake, every quiet promise, every turned back carries weight. It's why the dialogue feels poetic, even when it's simple. Lines like, "This is the business we have chosen," land like proverbs because the film has earned them through hours of carefully built context. Let's talk food for a second, because food is practically a character in the Godfather films. The meals, Sunday sauce simmering for hours, cannoli on the table, oranges appearing at key moments, a recurring visual motif from the first film that continues here, aren't just set dressing. They represent family, tradition, comfort, and sometimes the last normal moment before everything changes. Coppola drew from real Italian-American family gatherings he grew up with. His mother Italia was on set as an extra and even helped advise on some of the cooking scenes. The way characters eat, share, argue over plates, it humanizes them, grounds the epic stakes in something everyday and relatable. If you've ever sat at a long family table where love and tension coexist in the same bite, you'll recognize that truth here. More cast depth. Richard Bright, who plays Al Neri, Michael's stone-faced enforcer, was a method actor who stayed in character off-camera so intensely that some crew members were genuinely intimidated. He'd walk around set with that quiet menace, rarely smiling. Yet in real life, he was gentle and funny. Classic actor duality. Frank Severo, young Genco Abandando, later played Frankie Carbone in Goodfellas, creating a fun 6 degrees connection between Coppola and Scorsese universes. Bruno Kirby, young Clemenza, brought such warmth and loyalty to his role that you instantly believe he'd follow Vito anywhere. And Gaston Moschini as Don Fanucci, the neighborhood extortionist in Little Italy, wore real vintage clothing and practiced the exact walk and sneer of early 20th century Sicilian tough guys. Every performance feels researched to the bone. Production trivia keeps surfacing. The opening wedding sequence? No, not the first film's. Part 2 has its own big family gathering, used over 500 extras, many of them actual Italian Americans from the Bay Area and New York. They danced real tarantellas, ate real food prepared on set, and partied until the cameras stopped rolling. Coppola encouraged that energy because he wanted the celebration to feel genuine before the mood shifts. Another one, during the Lake Tahoe compound scenes, the crew dealt with freezing nights and fog rolling off the water, conditions that made some exterior shots magical but others miserable. Coppola used natural elements whenever possible, instead of fighting them. The film's score has one more layer worth mentioning. Some of the source music, the songs playing in the background during parties or street scenes, are actual recordings from the era or traditional Sicilian pieces. Carmine Coppola didn't just conduct, he arranged and played flute on several cues. The trumpet motif that opens the film? It's played by a session musician named Buddy Childers, but the emotional weight comes from how Rhoda weaves it through the entire picture like a heartbeat that slows and quickens with the story. Culturally and historically, Part 2 arrived at a perfect, and turbulent moment. 1974 was Watergate, the end of Vietnam, economic uncertainty. People were questioning power, institutions, the American promise. The film taps into that disillusionment without ever preaching. Michael's journey from war hero to reluctant heir to something colder mirrors a nation's own reckoning with its ideals. That's why it resonated then, and why it still does now. Every generation finds its own reflection in the Corleone's story. In 2026, with AI scripts, franchise fatigue, and 90-minute attention spans, The Godfather Part 2 feels almost defiant. It's long, it's slow in places, it trusts you to pay attention, it doesn't spoon-feed emotion. And that's exactly why it's powerful. It reminds us that great art takes time, that depth beats flash, that characters who feel real are worth 3 hours of your life. So, if this epic ramble has done its job, here's your action plan. Find a quiet evening, maybe this weekend. Make some pasta or order pizza, turn off notifications, grab a notebook if you want to jot down thoughts and watch. Let it wash over you. When it's done, sit in the silence for a minute before you speak. You'll understand why people call it perfect. You've got everything now, the sweat, the soul, the secrets. Go live with it. Then come back and tell me, what moment stopped your heart? Which performance broke you? Which image is burned into your brain? We're truly in the home stretch now, but honestly, talking about The Godfather Part 2 feels like it could go on forever, because every time you think you've covered it all, another beautiful layer reveals itself. This 1974 film isn't just a sequel or even a companion piece. It's a living, breathing meditation on time, memory, inheritance, and the slow, inevitable ways people become who they are. If you've been listening along, building this massive script with me, you already sense how dense and rewarding it is. It's the kind of movie that doesn't rush to conclusions, and neither should we. So let's linger a little longer on what makes it feel so personal, so universal, and so impossible to shake even decades later. No spoilers, just more of the quiet magic that turns a 3-hour epic into something you carry with you long after the screen fades to black. One of the things that hits hardest on repeat viewings is how Coppola uses objects as silent characters. Think about the doors. How many times a door closes softly behind someone, or a door is left ajar, or a door is forced open. Doors in this film aren't just entrances and exits. They're metaphors for choices, for shutting out the past or letting danger in, for the boundaries between family life and the world outside. The way the camera lingers on a doorknob turning or on light spilling through a half-open frame builds a kind of suspense that's purely visual and emotional. Then there are the chairs. Empty chairs at tables, chairs pulled up close during tense conversations, chairs left behind when someone walks away forever. Coppola and Gordon Willis frame these everyday items so deliberately that they start to feel weighted with history. Even something as simple as a glass of water or a lit cigarette becomes a punctuation mark in the rhythm of the scene. It's filmmaking at its most economical. No need for big speeches when a single prop, placed just so, can say everything. The performances keep giving too, especially when you start noticing the micro-expressions. Al Pacino's eyes in the later scenes, how they harden, how the warmth drains out over time, how a single blink can signal resignation or calculation. It's subtle, almost imperceptible on first watch, but once you see it, you can't unsee the gradual transformation. Robert De Niro's young Vito, by contrast, has this quiet openness in his gaze early on, hopeful, watchful, still believing the world can be shaped with honor and hard work. The contrast between those two sets of eyes, separated by decades yet tied by blood, is one of the film's deepest emotional currents. Robert Duvall as Tom Hagen has his own quiet power. The way he listens more than he speaks, the slight tilt of his head when he's processing bad news, the measured way he chooses every word because he knows words can start wars. These aren't showy performances. They're lived in, restrained, and therefore devastating. Even the smaller roles, G.D. Spradlin's oily politician, Lee Strasberg's frail but razor-sharp Roth, Talia Shire's wounded Connie, carry whole lifetimes in a handful of scenes. Let's talk about the weather and the seasons, because nature plays a supporting role here too. The prequel unfolds mostly in summer heat and autumn crispness. Sicily's dry sun, New York's humid streets, the sweat on brows during street confrontations. The modern storyline leans into winter and cold, snow on Lake Tahoe, icy winds off the water, the chill that creeps into rooms even when fireplaces are lit. Coppola uses these seasonal shifts to mirror emotional states without ever saying it out loud. The warmth of the past versus the cold isolation of the present isn't accidental. It's baked into every exterior shot. The crew fought real elements: blizzards delaying Tahoe exteriors, scorching Dominican heat during Havana stand-ins, and instead of hiding it, they leaned in. Fog rolling across the lake becomes a visual metaphor for clouded judgment. A sudden downpour drenching characters feels like the weight of inevitability. Nature isn't backdrop, it's commentary. Another thing that ages beautifully is the film's refusal to romanticize violence. When bad things happen, and they do, they're shown matter-of-factly, quick, brutal, unglamorous. No slow motion, no heroic music swells, no lingering on gore for shock value. The camera often pulls back or cuts away at the exact right moment, letting the sound design and the reactions of those left behind do the heavy lifting. It's restrained in a way that makes the impact linger longer. You feel the cost, not just to the victim, but to the person pulling the trigger, to the family waiting at home, to the whole fragile ecosystem of loyalty and fear. That's what separates this from lesser crime stories, the acknowledgement that every act ripples outward forever. In 2026, when so many films chase instant dopamine hits, quick edits, loud scores, constant twists, The Godfather. Part 2 feels almost radical in its confidence. It trusts you to sit with discomfort, to let silences stretch, to notice the way light falls across a face or the way a hand trembles when reaching for a phone. It doesn't explain every motivation. It shows them through behavior, through what people choose not to say. That's why it rewards patience. First viewing, you're caught in the sweep of the saga. Second viewing, you start seeing the architecture, the way a line of dialogue in 1910 echoes in 1958, the way a gesture in Sicily reappears in Nevada. Third viewing, it's personal. You start measuring your own life against the choices on screen, asking what you would do, what you've already done, what legacy you're building. At this point, we've built something pretty special together. A long, winding conversation that's basically turned into the ultimate companion guide for anyone about to sit down with The Godfather Part 2 for the first time, or the 20th. And you know what? There's still breath left in this film to talk about, still more quiet truths hiding in the corners of the frame, still more reasons why, even in January 2026, this 1974 movie feels like it was made yesterday and will still feel fresh tomorrow. So let's ease into one more long stretch, slower this time, more reflective, letting the words breathe the way the movie itself breathes. Imagine we're sitting in a dimly lit room after the credits have rolled, coffee gone cold, just unpacking what lingers. One of the deepest satisfactions of this film comes from how it treats memory, not as flashback gimmickry, but as something alive and corrosive. The way the past isn't safely locked away. It bleeds into the present through gestures, through objects passed down, through stories half told at dinner tables. Coppola never underlines it with voiceover or obvious parallels. He trusts you to feel the weight when a childhood habit reappears in an adult's hand, or when a childhood street echoes in a grown man's decision. That sense of continuity, how the sins and strengths of one generation don't vanish, they simply change shape, is what gives the dual timeline its emotional gravity. You start to understand that the film isn't really about crime or power in the conventional sense. It's about how we inherit the unfinished business of our bloodline and then spend our lives either honoring it, escaping it, or destroying it. And the heartbreaking part is that no one ever fully succeeds at any of those three. Pay attention, too, to how Coppola uses architecture as character. The cramped tenements of early New York press in on people, forcing them close, making every whisper audible, every glance unavoidable. Community is unavoidable there, even when it's suffocating. Contrast that with the wide, echoing halls of the Lake Tahoe estate. High ceilings, long corridors, rooms that swallow sound. Space becomes loneliness. The Sicilian village houses are stone and small and rooted, built to last generations. The Nevada compound is glass and wood and modern, built to impress but not to endure feeling. Every location isn't chosen just for beauty or authenticity. It's chosen because the walls themselves tell part of the story of ascent and alienation. Gordon Willis shoots those spaces with such reverence that you can almost feel the temperature difference between a sun-baked Sicilian courtyard and a snow-lit Tahoe bedroom. It's visual storytelling raised to the level of poetry. The women in this film deserve their own quiet applause. They aren't sidelined decoration. They're the emotional center even when they're silent. Kay's measured words carry the weight of someone trying to hold on to normalcy while the ground shifts beneath her. Connie's arc across the years shows resilience forged in pain, how grief can harden into something useful, something fierce. Mama Corleone, in both timelines, is the keeper of tradition, the one who still believes in the old codes even as the world around her changes. These aren't passive figures waiting for rescue. They're witnesses, survivors, sometimes quiet architects of what comes next. Coppola gives them space to exist beyond the men, to feel the full cost without needing to explain it. Diane Keaton, Talia Shire, Morgana King, they deliver performances of tremendous restraint and depth, proving that power doesn't always shout. And the music. God, the music. We've touched on Nino Rota and Carmine Coppola before, but let's linger here. That trumpet line isn't heroic or tragic in isolation. It's wistful, almost homesick. It starts pure and simple in the past, like a memory of something lost, then gets layered with darker harmonies as time moves forward. By the end, when it returns in fragments, it feels like an old friend who's aged badly. The waltz rhythms underneath some scenes carry the ghost of old country dances, reminding you that these people once belonged to a different tempo of life. Even the source music, the tarantella at celebrations, the mandolin in quiet moments, feels chosen with such care that it stops being soundtrack and becomes atmosphere. Turn the volume up when you watch. Let those strings wrap around you. You'll hear things you missed before. In the end, what makes The Godfather Part 2 endure isn't the plot twists, though they're masterful, or the iconic lines, though they're quoted endlessly, or even the Oscar haul. It's the feeling it leaves behind, a kind of melancholy recognition that life is long, choices are permanent, and family, real family, is both the greatest gift and the heaviest burden. It doesn't judge its characters, it mourns them. It doesn't glorify their world, it shows the slow bleed of everything human out of it. And somehow, in showing that loss so honestly, it makes you grateful for your own messy, ordinary life. So, when you finally sit down with it, maybe tonight, maybe this weekend, don't treat it like homework. Treat it like a conversation with someone older and wiser who's seen too much and still chooses to tell the truth. Let the opening puppet show pull you in. Let the Sicilian sun warm the screen. Let the Tahoe snow chill your bones. Let Al Pacino's eyes follow you home. And when it's over, don't rush to turn on the lights. Sit in the dark for a minute. Feel whatever comes up. That's the film doing its job. Let's set the stage. This isn't just any sequel. It's a bold expansion of the world introduced in the original Godfather film from 1972. Directed by the visionary Francis Ford Coppola, who also helmed the first one, The Godfather Part 2 takes the saga to new heights by weaving together two timelines in a way that's innovative and deeply immersive. Coppola, born in Detroit in 1939, was already making waves in Hollywood by the early 70s. He co-wrote the screenplay with Mario Puzo, the author of the original novel that started it all. Puzo, an Italian-American writer from New York, brought his authentic insights into organized crime and family dynamics, drawing from his own cultural background without romanticizing the darker sides. Together, they crafted a narrative that's as much about ambition, legacy, and the American dream as it is about personal relationships. If you loved the first film's exploration of power and morality, this one doubles down on those themes, making it feel like a natural evolution rather than a cash grab follow-up. Now, why should you watch it? Because it's a film that redefined what a sequel could be. In an era when most follow-ups were forgettable rehashes, Coppola delivered something profound. It's often cited as one of the rare sequels that's even better than the original, a feat that's inspired countless filmmakers since. Imagine a story that spans generations, showing how choices echo through time, all wrapped in stunning visuals and performances that stick with you long after the credits roll. It's the kind of movie that makes you think, feel, and appreciate the craft of cinema on a whole new level. Plus, in today's world of endless reboots and franchises, The Godfather. Part 2 stands as a timeless reminder of storytelling done right. Let's talk about the powerhouse behind the camera, Francis Ford Coppola. At just 35 years old when he directed this, Coppola was at the peak of his creative powers. He came from a talented family. His father, Carmine, was a composer who even contributed to the film's score. Coppola studied drama at Hofstra University and film at UCLA, where he honed his skills under mentors like Dorothy Arzner. Before the Godfather series, he directed films like The Rain People and won an Oscar for writing Patton. For Part 2, he fought hard for creative control, negotiating with Paramount Pictures to ensure his vision wasn't compromised. The result? A film that's deeply personal, reflecting Coppola's own Italian heritage and his fascination with family legacies. He once said that making these movies was like exploring his roots, and that passion shines through every frame. Speaking of production, The Godfather Part 2 was produced by Paramount Pictures, the same studio that backed the first film after its massive success. The budget was around $13 million, a significant jump from the original's $6 million, reflecting the higher stakes and more ambitious scope. Filming took place over several months in 1973 and 1974, with locations spanning the United States, the Dominican Republic, standing in for Cuba, and Sicily in Italy. The production team recreated early 20th century New York with meticulous detail, using places like the streets of Manhattan and even Lake Tahoe for some scenes. Challenges abounded: weather issues in Sicily, logistical hurdles with international shoots, and the pressure to live up to the first film's legacy. Coppola's dedication paid off, though. He edited the film himself in his San Francisco home, fine-tuning it into the 202-minute epic we know today. The cast is nothing short of legendary, and that's another huge reason to watch. Al Pacino reprises his role as the central figure, delivering a performance that's nuanced, intense, and utterly captivating. Pacino, born in 1940 in New York, was relatively new to stardom after the first Godfather, but here he solidifies his status as one of the greatest actors of his generation. His preparation involved deep immersion into the character's psyche, drawing from real-life figures without ever crossing into caricature. Then there's Robert De Niro, who steps into a pivotal role with such authenticity that it's hard to believe it was one of his early major parts. De Niro, also from New York and born in 1943, learned Sicilian dialect for authenticity, spending months in Italy to perfect his accent and mannerisms. His method acting approach, famous for its intensity, brings a raw energy that's electrifying. Supporting them is a stellar ensemble. Robert Duvall returns with his trademark gravitas, bringing depth to his character through subtle expressions and commanding presence. Diane Keaton, fresh off her Oscar nomination for the first film, adds emotional layers with her portrayal of complexity and resilience. Talia Shire, Coppola's own sister, shines in her role, blending vulnerability with strength. John Cazale, known for his collaborations with Pacino, delivers a heartbreakingly real performance. Lee Strasberg, the legendary acting teacher who influenced so many stars, makes his film debut here at age 73, bringing method acting authenticity. Other notables include G.D. Spradlin, Michael V. Gazzo, and even a young Bruno Kirby in a small but memorable part. The chemistry among this cast is palpable. They feel like a real family, which heightens the film's emotional impact. Behind the scenes, the crew was top tier. Cinematographer Gordon Willis, nicknamed the Prince of Darkness for his shadowy style, created visuals that are both beautiful and ominous. Using Technicolor, he employed low-light techniques to evoke mood, with warm tones for one timeline and cooler ones for another. The editing by Peter Zinner, Barry Malkin, and Richard Marx is seamless, juggling parallel stories without confusion. Production designer Dean Tavoularis recreated eras with precision, from vintage cars to period costumes by Theodora Van Runkel, who sourced authentic fabrics and designs. And let's not forget the music. Nino Rota, the Italian composer who scored the first film, returns with themes that are haunting and evocative. His work blends Sicilian folk influences with orchestral grandeur, featuring instruments like the mandolin and trumpet. Carmine Coppola, Francis's father, contributed additional music, including pieces for specific scenes. The soundtrack isn't just background, it's integral to the film's soul, enhancing tension and nostalgia. When it comes to release and reception, The Godfather Part 2 premiered on December 12, 1974 in New York, before a wide release on December 20th. It was rated R for its mature themes, running 3 hours and 22 minutes, a length that might seem daunting, but trust me, it flies by. Box office-wise, it grossed between $47.5 and $57.3 million in the US alone, with worldwide earnings pushing it over $100 million when adjusted for inflation. That's impressive for the time, especially against competitors like the towering Inferno. Critics adored it. Roger Ebert called it a brilliant companion piece, praising its ambition. Pauline Kael lauded the performances and direction. It holds a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes today, with audiences scoring it even higher. But the real validation came from the awards. At the 47th Academy Awards in 1975, it won 6 Oscars. Best Picture, making it the first sequel to do so, Best Director for Coppola, Best Supporting Actor for De Niro, the first in a non-English speaking role, Best Adapted Screenplay for Coppola and Puzo, Best Art Direction, and Best Original Dramatic Score for Rhoda and Carmine Coppola. It was nominated for 11 total, including Best Actor for Pacino, Best Supporting Actor for Gazzo and Strasberg, a rare 3-in-1 category, Best Supporting Actress for Shire, and Best Costume Design. Why does this matter? Because these accolades underscore the film's excellence. Watching it, you'll see why it swept the awards. Every element is crafted with care. It's not just entertainment, it's art that challenges and inspires. Now, let's delve into the technical aspects that make it shine. The sound design by Walter Murch is revolutionary, using layered audio to build atmosphere, from bustling city streets to quiet, tense conversations. Makeup by Dick Smith transformed actors, especially for aging effects. Special effects were minimal but effective, focusing on practical elements like period-accurate props. Filming anecdotes add to its allure. De Niro's immersion was so deep he lived in Sicily for 4 months, learning trades to embody his character. Pacino pushed through exhaustion during long shoots. Coppola dealt with studio interference but prevailed, even rewriting scenes on set. One famous story: the Dominican Republic shoot involved real political unrest, adding unintended authenticity. Culturally, The Godfather Part 2 has left an indelible mark. It influenced films like Goodfellas, The Sopranos, and even modern epics like The Irishman. Phrases and imagery from it permeate pop culture. Think of the immigrant story resonating with audiences worldwide. It's preserved in the National Film Registry since 1993 for its significance. For film students, it's a masterclass. The dual narrative structure teaches pacing and contrast. Coppola's direction shows how to handle ensemble casts. Willis's cinematography is studied for lighting techniques. In 2026, as we look back, its relevance endures. Themes of power, corruption, and family echoes in today's world. It's a bridge between old Hollywood and the new wave, blending spectacle with substance. So, why watch The Godfather Part 2? Because it's more than a movie. It's an experience that enriches your understanding of cinema, history, and human nature. It rewards multiple viewings, revealing new layers each time. If you haven't seen it, drop everything and cue it up. If you have, revisit it. You'll appreciate it even more. Let's talk more about the historical context. Released amid Watergate and post-Vietnam cynicism, it mirrored America's disillusionment with institutions. The immigrant tale reflects waves of Italian migration in the early 1900s, touching on discrimination and assimilation. Mario Puzo's novel, while the basis was expanded here. Puzo wrote the book in 1969, but for Part 2, he and Coppola invented new elements, blending fact-inspired fiction with drama. Casting stories are fascinating. De Niro auditioned for the first film, but got this role instead. Pacino nearly quit due to script changes, but stayed after revisions. Marlon Brando, star of the original, was considered for a cameo, but declined due to disputes. Production challenges included budget overruns, it went over by about $2 million, and scheduling conflicts. Coppola's health suffered from stress, but his perseverance paid off. The film's editing process was grueling. Coppola cut over 1 million feet of film experimenting with structures until it clicked. Musically, Rhoda's score was nominated despite controversy over reused themes, but the Academy recognized its brilliance. Visually, the color palette shifts between timelines, sepia-tinged for the past, stark for the present, enhancing thematic parallels. In terms of legacy, it's ranked number 3 on AFY's 100 Years, 100 Movies list, behind only Citizen Kane and the original Godfather. Polls like Sight and Sound place it high among directors' favorites. For trivia fans, it's the only film with 2 actors winning Oscars for the same character, Brando and De Niro. Coppola became the second director to win Best Picture for a sequel. Home video releases include director's cuts, like The Godfather Epic, combining both films chronologically. Restorations in 2008 and 2022 have kept it looking pristine, with 4 KUHD versions showcasing Willis's work. Influences extend to video games like Mafia series and TV like Boardwalk Empire. That brings us to another fascinating layer of The Godfather Part 2, its profound influence on modern storytelling. You see, this film didn't just entertain audiences in the 1970s, it reshaped the landscape of cinema, television, and even literature for decades to come. If you're someone who binges prestige TV shows or devours epic novels, you owe a nod to Coppola's work here. Think about series like Breaking Bad or Succession. The intricate family dynamics, the moral ambiguities of power, the slow-burn character arcs, they all echo the blueprint laid out in this movie. It's like The Godfather Part 2 planted the seeds for anti-hero narratives that dominate our screens today. Watching it will give you that aha moment where you connect the dots between classic Hollywood and contemporary hits, making your viewing experiences richer and more interconnected. Let's dive deeper into the screenplay, because that's the backbone of why this film captivates. Coppola and Puzo didn't just adapt the novel, they expanded it creatively. The original Godfather book by Puzo focused heavily on the post-war era, but for Part 2, they invented an entire prequel storyline that parallels the main narrative. This dual structure, jumping between past and present, was groundbreaking. It allows viewers to see cause and effect in real time, without ever feeling disjointed. Puzo, who was 54 at the time of release, drew from his experiences growing up in Hell's Kitchen, infusing the script with authentic dialogue that feels lived in. Lines aren't just words, they're windows into cultural nuances, like the subtle shifts in language between generations. Coppola revised the script multiple times, even during filming, to heighten emotional stakes. If you're aspiring to write stories yourself, studying this screenplay is like taking a masterclass. It shows how to balance epic scope with intimate moments, all while keeping the audience hooked. Now, on the technical side, the film's use of lighting and color deserves its own spotlight. Gordon Willis's cinematography isn't just pretty, it's storytelling in shadows. He used a technique called underexposing to create deep contrasts, where faces emerge from darkness like secrets being revealed. For the early 1900 scenes, he opted for a warmer, almost golden hue to evoke nostalgia and the promise of the American dream. In contrast, the 1950s sequences have a cooler, more desaturated palette, mirroring the characters' growing isolation. This visual dichotomy reinforces the themes without a single word of explanation. Willis collaborated closely with Coppola, testing film stocks and lenses to achieve that signature look. Equipment included Aeroflex cameras for handheld shots in Sicily, adding a documentary feel to historical recreations. If you appreciate films like Blade Runner or The Dark Knight for their atmospheric visuals, you'll see The Godfather Part 2 as a precursor. It's proof that cinematography can elevate a story from good to unforgettable. Speaking of the score, Nino Rota's compositions are a character in themselves. Born in Milan in 1911, Rota was a prolific composer who worked with Fellini on classics like La Dolce Vita. For this film, he built on the iconic Godfather Waltz from the first movie, varying it to reflect different eras. In the past sequences, it's folksy and hopeful, with mandolins evoking Sicilian roots. In the present, it turns melancholic, almost dirge-like, underscoring loss. Carmine Coppola added authentic Italian flavors, composing pieces like the immigrant arrival theme with flutes and strings. The soundtrack was recorded in Rome and Los Angeles, mixing orchestral elements with period instruments. Fun fact, Rota's score faced scrutiny at the Oscars because some motifs were similar to his earlier works, but the Academy ultimately honored it. Listening to it isolated, you'll feel transported. It's why film scores matter, and this one will make you seek out more of Rota's genius. Production design is another unsung hero that makes this movie immersive. Dean Tavoularis, who started as an art director on Bonnie and Clyde, scoured for authentic props. For the New York tenement scenes, he sourced turn-of-the-century furniture from antique dealers, even importing olive oil cans from Italy for set dressing. In the Cuban sequences, filmed in the Dominican Republic, he recreated Havana's opulent casinos with chandeliers and marble floors despite budget constraints. Costumes by Theodora Van Runkel were equally meticulous. She designed over 500 outfits, using wool suits for the 1910s to show humble beginnings and silk ties for the 1950s to denote rising status. Makeup artist Dick Smith, later famous for The Exorcist, used prosthetics for subtle aging, like adding wrinkles without overdoing it. These details create a tangible world. You'll feel the chill of Sicilian winters or the humidity of Miami meetings. It's this commitment to realism that pulls you in, making the film feel like a time machine rather than a set. Let's not overlook the editing prowess. Peter Zinner, who won an Oscar for The Deer Hunter later, led the team in weaving the timelines. They cut between stories at precise emotional beats, a technique called parallel editing that builds tension organically. The process involved screening dailies daily, with Coppola making notes on index cards to track themes. One challenge was pacing the long runtime. They trimmed subplots but kept the essence, ensuring every scene serves the whole. If you've ever edited videos yourself, you'll admire how they make 202 minutes feel concise. The final cut was locked just weeks before premiere, after test screenings in San Francisco, where audiences raved about the structure. Reception-wise, the film wasn't without controversy. Some critics initially felt it was too ambitious, with Vincent Canby of the New York Times noting its density but praising its depth. Over time, though, it became a benchmark. In 1975, it dominated the Golden Globes too, winning Best Motion Picture, Drama, Best Director, Best Actor for Pacino, Best Supporting Actor for De Niro, and Best Screenplay. BAFTA nods followed, cementing its international appeal. Adjusted for inflation, its box office haul is over $300 million today, a testament to word-of-mouth buzz. Fans formed lines around blocks, debating its merits in coffee shops. It's this enduring conversation that keeps it alive. Join in by watching, and you'll have your own takes to share. Culturally, The Godfather. Part 2 speaks to the immigrant experience in ways few films do. Set against real historical backdrops like the 1901 arrival at Ellis Island or the 1959 Cuban Revolution, it humanizes the struggles of building a life in America. Coppola incorporated newsreel footage and actual events, like the Senate hearings on organized crime, to ground the fiction in reality. This blend makes it educational without being preachy. You'll learn about early 20th century Mafia roots or post-war economic booms subtly. For Italian Americans, it's a mixed legacy. Some praise its authenticity, others critique stereotypes. Yet it sparked dialogues on representation, influencing later works like The Sopranos, where creator David Chase cited it as inspiration. Anecdotes from the set add flavor. During Sicily shoots, locals mistook De Niro for a real villager due to his immersion. Coppola hosted cast dinners with Italian cuisine to build camaraderie. One tense moment: a hurricane delayed Dominican filming, forcing reshoots. Pacino improvised lines like quiet reflections that made the cut. Duvall practiced law jargon with real attorneys for authenticity. These stories humanize the production, showing it's a labor of love amid chaos. In terms of legacy, it's inspired parodies and homages everywhere, from The Simpsons episodes to video games like Grand Theft Auto, which borrow its crime family tropes. Books on film history devote chapters to it, analyzing its themes of betrayal and ambition. Preservation efforts by the Academy and Coppola's own American zoetrope ensure future generations can enjoy it in high definition. Comparisons to the original Godfather are inevitable. While the first is more linear and accessible, Part 2 is bolder, riskier, like a symphony's second movement that deepens the melody. Together they form a saga, but Part 2 stands alone beautifully. If you watch them back to back, the payoff is immense. As we approach its 52nd anniversary in 2026, retrospectives abound. Restored versions highlight details lost in older prints, like intricate background actions. Streaming platforms make it accessible, but nothing beats a theater screening for that communal vibe. Why else watch? It challenges you intellectually. Themes of fate versus free will, the corruption of ideals, they're timeless. In our polarized world, its exploration of loyalty and division resonates deeply. For actors, it's a benchmark. De Niro's Oscar win paved his path to icons like Raging Bull. Pacino's nomination fueled his streak in Serpico and Dog Day Afternoon. Cazale's work, tragically his penultimate before passing young, is poignant. Technologically, it pushed boundaries. Sound mixing used early Dolby techniques for clearer dialogue amid crowds. Visual effects, though subtle, included matte paintings for cityscapes. In education, it's taught in film schools worldwide. UCLA, Coppola's alma mater, screens it annually. Books like The Godfather Notebook detail his process, offering insights for creators. Personally, as your narrator, this film changed how I view stories. Its patience rewards attention, No quick cuts, just deliberate builds. You'll emerge thoughtful, perhaps discussing it with friends over wine. The Godfather Part 2 was released on December 12, 1974 by Paramount Pictures, and it clocks in at a hefty 202 minutes. That's about 3 hours and 22 minutes of pure cinematic brilliance. Now, I know that sounds long, but every second is worth it. This film weaves together themes of ambition, loyalty, betrayal, and the cost of success in a way that's both intimate and grand. It's like peering into the soul of America through the lens of one family's journey. If you're someone who loves stories that explore the human condition, the immigrant experience, or the dark side of the pursuit of power, this is your movie. It doesn't rush, it builds layers upon layers, drawing you in until you're completely immersed. And the best part? It rewards rewatches. Each time you'll notice something new, like a subtle expression or a symbolic detail that hits differently. At the helm of this epic is Francis Ford Coppola, who not only directed but also produced and co-wrote the screenplay. Coppola was already riding high after the massive success of the first Godfather film in 1972, which had become a cultural phenomenon. But for Part 2, he took things to another level. Born in 1939 in Detroit, Michigan, Coppola came from a family of artists. His father, Carmine Coppola, was a composer who actually contributed to the film's score. Francis studied film at UCLA and started his career with smaller projects, but the Godfather series catapulted him to legend status. For this sequel, he collaborated again with Mario Puzo, the author of the original 1969 novel, The Godfather. Puzo, an Italian-American writer born in 1920 in New York City, drew from his own experiences and research into organized crime to craft the source material. Together, Coppola and Puzo adapted elements from the book while expanding the narrative in bold new directions. Their screenplay isn't just a retread, it's innovative, blending timelines seamlessly to create a richer tapestry. This collaboration earned them an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, and it's easy to see why. The dialogue is sharp, poetic, and loaded with subtext that makes every conversation feel like a chess match. Now let's talk about the budget and production, because this film was no small feat. The initial budget was set around $6 million, but due to ambitious scope, it ballooned to about $13 million. That might not sound huge by today's standards, but in 1974, it was a significant investment, especially for a sequel. Paramount Pictures backed it through the Coppola Company, Coppola's production outfit. Filming kicked off on October 23, 1973, and wrapped up after a grueling schedule that spanned multiple locations. They shot in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, where the stunning Fleur de Lac estate stood in for key settings. Imagine pristine lakeside views that add to the film's majestic feel. Then there was New York City, capturing the gritty streets of Little Italy and Hell's Kitchen to evoke early 20th century immigrant life. They even went international. Sicily for authentic Italian backdrops, and the Dominican Republic doubled for pre-revolutionary Cuba, bringing in vibrant, exotic atmospheres. Weather delays, illnesses among the cast and crew, and the sheer number of locations pushed costs up, but it all paid off. The production design by Dean Tavoularis, along with art directors Angelo P. Graham and George R. Nelson, created worlds that feel lived in and authentic, from opulent mansions to bustling urban neighborhoods. Their work won an Oscar for Best Art Direction, and deservedly so. Every frame is a visual feast. Speaking of visuals, the cinematography by Gordon Willis is nothing short of revolutionary. Known as the Prince of Darkness for his masterful use of shadows and low light, Willis had already wowed audiences in the first film. Here, he elevates it further, using warm sepia tones for one timeline and cooler, more stark lighting for another, which helps distinguish the eras without a word. His camera work is deliberate, often lingering on faces to capture raw emotion. Paired with the editing by Barry Malkin, Richard Marx, and Peter Zinner, the film flows like a symphony. Smooth transitions that build tension and depth. The costume design by Theodora Van Runkel brings authenticity to every era, from tailored suits to period dresses, and it earned a nomination for Best Costume Design. And the sound design? Immaculate, with every footstep, whisper, and ambient noise pulling you deeper into the world. But what really makes this film sing is the music. The score was composed by Nino Rota, the Italian maestro who scored the original, with additional compositions by Carmine Coppola. Rota's themes are iconic, haunting melodies on accordion, mandolin, and orchestra that evoke nostalgia, tragedy, and grandeur. Tracks like the main theme or the immigrant motifs stick with you long after the credits roll. This score won an Oscar for Best Original Dramatic Score, shared between Rhoda and Carmine Coppola. It's not just background, it's the emotional heartbeat of the movie, enhancing the themes of heritage and loss without overpowering the drama. Now, onto the cast. Oh man, this ensemble is a dream. Leading the charge is Al Pacino as Michael Corleone. Pacino, born in 1940 in New York, was already a rising star after the first film. But here he delivers a performance that's layered and intense. He brings a quiet intensity, showing a man grappling with immense responsibilities. His portrayal earned him a nomination for Best Actor at the Oscars and a win for Best Actor at the BAFTAs. It's the kind of role that defines a career, and if you love character-driven stories, watching Pacino's evolution is reason enough to see this. Opposite him in a groundbreaking role is Robert De Niro as the young Vito Corleone. De Niro, born in 1943 in New York, learned Sicilian dialect for authenticity. Most of his dialogue is in Sicilian with subtitles. His performance is transformative. He studied Marlon Brando's mannerisms from the first film to create continuity, but makes the character his own with subtle gestures and commanding presence. This won him the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, making him the second actor to win for playing Vito Corleone. Brando was the first, but skipped the ceremony. De Niro wasn't there either. He was filming another project, so Coppola accepted on his behalf. It's a testament to how this film bridges generations. Robert Duvall returns as Tom Hagen, the loyal consigliere. Duvall, born in 1931 in San Diego, brings gravitas and nuance to a role that's all about quiet counsel and moral ambiguity. His chemistry with Pacino is electric. Then there's Diane Keaton as Kay Corleone. Keaton, born in 1946 in Los Angeles, infuses the character with strength and vulnerability, making her a standout in a male-dominated story. Her performance adds emotional depth, exploring themes of love and sacrifice. John Cazale plays Fredo Corleone with heartbreaking subtlety. Cazale, born in 1935 in Massachusetts, was known for his intense method acting. Sadly, this was one of his few films before his untimely death in 1978. Talia Shire, Coppola's sister, born in 1946 in New York, reprises Connie Corleone, bringing fire and complexity. Her role earned a Best Supporting Actress nomination. Lee Strasberg makes his film debut as Hyman Roth. Strasberg, the legendary acting teacher born in 1901 in what is now Ukraine, was 73 and brought his method acting expertise to create a memorable, calculating figure. His performance got a Best Supporting Actor nod. Michael V. Gazzo as Frank Pentangeli is explosive and authentic. Gazzo, born in 1923 in New Jersey, drew from his theater background for a role that also earned a Best Supporting Actor nomination. G.D. Spradlin as Senator Pat Geary adds political intrigue with his authoritative presence. Richard Bright as Al Neri is stoic and reliable. Gaston Moschkin as Don Fanucci brings old-world menace. Tom Roski as Rocco Lampone is tough and loyal. Bruno Kirby, in one of his early roles as young Peter Clemenza, shows charm and street smarts. Kirby, born in 1949 in New York, would later star in hits like When Harry Met Sally. Frank Severo as Genco Abandando is youthful and energetic. Francesca Di Sapio as young Carmela Corleone adds warmth. Morgana King reprises Mama Corleone with maternal strength. Mariana Hill as Diana Corleone brings flair. Leopoldo Trieste as Signor Roberto is quirky and memorable. Dominic Chianese as Johnny Ola is slick. Fans of The Sopranos will recognize him as Uncle Junior. Amerigo Tot as a bodyguard adds physicality. Troy Donahue, a 1950s heartthrob born in 1936, plays Merle Johnson. His real name, fun fact. John Aprea as young Sal Tessio is earnest. Joe Spinell as Willie Chichi is gritty. Abe Vigoda reprises Tessio with wisdom. Tara Livrano as Teresa Hagen is supportive. Gianni Russo returns as Carlo Rizzi with intensity. Maria Carta as Vito's mother is poignant. Oreste Baldini as young Vito captures innocence. Giuseppe Silato as Don Francesco Ciccio is imposing. And that's not all. There are dozens more in smaller roles, like James Caan in a cameo as Sonny Corleone, Harry Dean Stanton as an FBI agent, Roger Corman in a Senate role, a nod to Coppola's mentor, and even Coppola's family members in bits, like his daughter Sophia as a child. This cast is a who's who of talent, each bringing depth that makes the world feel alive. On the box office front, the film was a hit. grossing about $47.8 million in the US and Canada, with worldwide estimates up to $93 million. Some sources say more with re-releases. Adjusted for inflation, it's even more impressive. But its true success is in critical acclaim. It holds a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, with critics praising its ambition. Roger Ebert called it a brilliant companion piece. It's often cited as one of the best films ever, ranking number 32 on the AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies list in 1997 and 2007. In 1993, it was selected for the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The reception was electric. At the 47th Academy Awards, it scored 11 nominations, winning 6, the first sequel to win Best Picture. Coppola's direction was hailed for its scope. De Niro's win broke barriers, and the film's exploration of themes like corruption and the immigrant story resonated deeply, especially post-Watergate. It influenced countless films, from The Sopranos to Goodfellas, setting the standard for character epics. Trivia time. Coppola almost didn't direct. He wanted Martin Scorsese, but Paramount insisted. De Niro auditioned for Sonny in the first film, but got Vito here. The Sicilian scenes used real locals for authenticity. There were script changes on set, like expanding De Niro's storyline. A deleted scene with Brando was planned, but didn't happen due to disputes. The film's structure, intercutting timelines, was innovative, inspiring non-linear storytelling. Why should you watch? Because it's more than a movie. It's an experience that challenges you, moves you, and stays with you. It shows how power corrupts, how family binds and breaks, how the past shapes the future, all without preaching. The performances are career-defining, the craftsmanship impeccable. In a world of quick cuts and CGI, this is pure, passionate filmmaking.